This is a blog around living a life by design. Several decades ago, I sat with a thought leader who ran a corporate wellness, performance, and engagement program called Me Central. And Ian Hutchinson, Hutch was kind of his name, and he's still alive. And we used to talk about all things training, speaking, engagement, and the like. And whilst we haven't connected for a while, one of the things I really remember about Hutch is that he lived a life like without compromise. Now, whether it was perfect or not, I don't know, whatever that is. But he lived it on his terms. And I've always admired his commitment to living a life by design. It's actually the name of his business and a great coaching program. And the link is in the written newsletter. He'd recently come back from a Robert Holden. Robert Holden wrote a book called Happiness is a Choice from a program in the UK that Robert had run, and shared with me over coffee, through that lens of happiness, what it meant to design a life of your choosing, a life less ordinary, less grindy, less obligatory, and more intentional. And the conversation and the idea has always stuck with me, so I thought it might be worth something to focus on this week. The Thoughtless Practice model is built on a foundational freedom meme of doing work you love with people you like the way you want. Like, in other words, it is a practice and, by extension, a life by design. And so with that in mind, I thought I'd use the rest of the newsletter to pose some questions and thoughts that kind of just help you run an intentional life and run a practice by design. Just some things, and I've broken them into sort of life and practice sort of categories. So under the category of life, I'm going to begin with like a Buddhist concept called deep aspiration. So what is your earliest positive aspirational memory? So that's the question. What is your earliest positive aspirational memory? So forget the descriptive content you might have used back then, like teacher, doctor, astronaut, and try and capture the theme, the abstract context of that aspiration. So the teacher might share, the doctor might heal, the astronaut might explore. And then place that kind of in your heart, and now reflect around what changes might you make to how you're currently living that would get you closer to that original pure intention. So I really love this aspiration question and the fact that it's built on this idea that you have probably always known what would make you happy. I'm now going to sort of shift into like a Brene Brown category around shame, if you like. Sometimes shame buries truths that you can use to live a more meaningful life, and we often don't go there because of the shame. So is there something that you carry as a shame that might be a vehicle to your deeper fulfillment and happiness? This one's, kind of private, I get it, but can be super powerful around getting your life more aligned with what makes you truly happy. I want to sort of talk about the tyranny of obligation, if you like. So the next question is so examine where you feel a sense of obligation and responsibility, in your life, and challenge some of the stories you tell yourself about those obligatory commitments. Do they serve you still? Are there any maladaptive habits, so they're like habits that don't help you, that you formed around these ideas that might have helped you back then, but that no longer serve you now? Fourth question is, if you dared to do anything with your life that you're currently not honouring, how might that look? So you've got this desire to a moment of bravery for something you would dare to do, but you're not honouring that. How might that look? And a great core question to ask at any given moment is, what do I want? So what do you want? And the follow-up question is, what will you have to give up to get it? And they're not always negative things that you have to give up. A follow-on question is, what are your non-negotiables, the things you won't change or give up along the way? A lot of people think they can't have the life of their dreams because they feel imprisoned by something else, but other people feel like they're going to lose the things that matter most to them. And there's nothing in our thought leaders practice game that would suggest you would ever give up anything that gave you joy. Okay, so with regard to all of this sort of life stuff, life by design, what do you know for sure? Where do you have certainty? Where do you have conviction? And now hold on to that, or anchor to this emergent conviction. All right, so go back into those moments where you feel you have really strong conviction. And now ask the question, what's next for me? All right, so I'm asking, what's next for you from that place of conviction? And that's the series of questions to do with life. just trying to get you intentional around that idea of a life by design that Hutch was sort of talking to me about 20 plus years ago. Now let's go to your practice, your thought leadership practice, and consider the difference between three things: between a job, a career, and a vocation. And once you've got sort of a bit of contemplation on that, feel free to pause the audio. I realise that we're privileged to do more than just work, and perhaps more than even have a career. So how is your practice feeding your vocation? And if it's not, what could you change that might increase the vocational or purposefulness quality of your practice? The second question and third component of the practice, sort of diagnostic around a practice by design, is what about your current work fills your soul? Is there anything that you can do to increase more, like have greater amounts of that or more of it in your week? And then obviously the converse of that is what about your work wears you down? Is there anything you can do to remove this, systemize it, outsource or delegate this work? A really practical question in this area is, what does your ideal week look like from a work and a play point of view? And something very specific to the Thought Leaders curriculum. And if you haven't read the green book, The Thought Leaders Practice, or been through the foundation program, this won't make a lot of sense. But how does your cluster pricing create more freedom for you, and where does it need a little focus? That's a real practical, granular one for people who are, students of the curriculum, the Thought Leaders curriculum. A question I really like to future-proof my practice is, what business am I really in? So what business are you really in? And if I were to ask clients the same question, how might they answer that? Is there work you wish to stop doing in your practice but have not yet let it go? And why? That's not a why like, why haven't you? That's maybe you've got a really good reason. Okay, so with the increased consciousness that you've got through these questions around practice, and particularly the idea of work you wish to stop doing, what decisions and commitments would you like to make now? There's a definition of insanity, which is to keep doing the same thing and expect different results. And I think taking a moment to ask yourself, is my life by design, is my practice intentional, can be super, super powerful. So here are my final thoughts from the blog. We run a practice so we can live more intentionally and focus on the work we love. This takes some courage and a bit of exertion as you kind of stick your elbows out, wriggle around, and make room in the social norms for a life less ordinary, a life where you commit to living and working by design.